The Flames have played 3 games, but we're going to discuss everything you need to know.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and I am joined by my co-host, Nick Zararis. Nick, how are you?
Cold. First actually cold day of fall so far today. That's why I'm layered up if you're watching on YouTube.
Well, before we dive into the Flames' start to the season, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. So, like I said, we're going to talk about what we've seen, what we hope to see, and just kind of talk about it in general, because there's finally hockey, but it's such a small sample size that, labeling it isn't going to do any good. So just subscribe to Locked On Flames.
Completely agreed with you. Generally speaking, you can't start beginning to make determinations till you have about a month's worth of games. And that's just like general, like team, like, is this team good or not? You won't have enough data to start like actually kind of picking through the weeds and trying to determine what's sustainable and what isn't, probably until Thanksgiving-ish, when we get to that around the 25-30 game mark. Until we have that many games, we just don't have enough data to really discern what's real and what isn't. All we have to go on is kind of what we've seen and how the games have felt, which there's a I'm trying to think of the word I would use. It kind of feels like the Flames are like learning how to ride a bike, and they're getting a couple pedals going down the driveway. And then as soon as they're about to get to like, oh, I'm biking, they fall off the bike and their parents help them up and then they restart. That's what the last 2 games have felt like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think it was 2 years ago when the Ducks got off to a really hot start and everyone was like, oh, they're finally, emerging. They're a real team. It wasn't sustainable. And same thing with the Sabres, probably 3 or 4 years ago.
The Sabres did that like 3 times in 5 years, where they came out of the gate really hot and then it just died out by December.
Right. So you can't judge a book by its cover. I'm sorry. We are still, we have barely opened this book. And we can't get too ahead of ourselves. And the overreactions are just so, I get it. Last season was bad. It was bad. But things are different. Just give it time.
It's interesting to me as like a psychological experiment, not as like a sports conversation. Because like, what are you hoping to achieve by doing that type of reaction, by giving a performative, dramatic? Nobody knows anything about anyone yet. Hell, we're 2 months into the NFL season, and I think there's maybe 2 actually good teams in the entire league. There's, of course, more than 2 good teams, but we just don't know enough yet. And that league has played, close to half of the games it's going to play for the entire season. The NHL, most teams 2-3 games in at this point. You won't know anything definitive, not even definitive. You won't have anything to start forming real arguments about for at least another month. At least 1 more month until we can start determining if this team is actually good, if that team isn't. Like, there are still teams that have lines with like 75-80% expected goal shares on Money Puck right now because they haven't played enough hockey. Nobody's going to sustain a 70% expected goal share. The best lines in the league will sustain a high 50s. There is a lot of evening out and water to find its level. That's the thing about hockey season. Even though hockey is grueling and physical, it is a very monotonous sport at times, where it's 82 games over 5.5 months. And that's a lot of time for things to kind of even out and for water to find its level.
And that's why, you just have to truly take this first month 1 game at a time.
You got to say with the Canadian accent, though.
You do it.
I can't either. I'm just saying you got to say it you got to say it with that disenchanted, like I've had the individuality stamped out of me since I was 14. We got to get our feet moving. We're going to take it one day at a time. We got some good looks. We got pucks in deep. We were moving our feet. I liked what we were doing there in the third period. You got to have a lot of likes, us. You got to sound like you're extremely inarticulate to really convey the point.
Yeah, you're just going to sound robotic and like you have no personality. And that happens to the best of these guys. So it's probably going to happen to us someday. But, I feel like the Flames and really any team, like you said, you're not going to get any sort of real read on anything or anyone until November.
At least.
Jacob
Markstrom. Later than that.
Right. Jacob Markstrom having like a bad night in October does not mean
that bad, frankly. And we'll talk about that, but
like it's not the end of the world. I promise you. There's no playoff picture that we need to be stressing about.
Yeah, no, the Oilers are in dead last in the entire league. I want to say the Oilers have been outscored 3 goals to 11 goals through like 2 games, something like that, like a horrendous goal share. It's so early. There's nothing definitive. Here's what you do. You start formulating your theories, and then you watch the games and you gauge your theories based on how the games go. And then a month or 2 from now, when we can start doing deep dive analysis, then we can start having conversations about what's sustainable and what isn't. So far, the Flames have looked competitive, and that's really that's the first benchmark this early in the season. I'm not saying good. I'm not saying bad. I am saying they have been in all 3 of their games. They have had a chance to win all 3 of their games. I know the final score was kind of ugly against Pittsburgh, but they were in that game until it kind of got away from them there. Right. And that wasn't that they got outplayed. That was that they made 3 mistakes and all 3 of the mistakes ended up in the back of the net. Sometimes you have nights like that where the other team is just able to convert on all your mistakes, but they have been competitive. And that's your first benchmark. Are they in their games or are they phoning it in? Are they disinterested? Is it sloppy? Is it ugly? And yeah, there are things to clean up and we're going to talk about that coming up. But at the very least, they're in these games. They have played their opponents well. You could argue they probably should have beat Washington last night. That's fine. I'd agree with you. They probably should have. They thoroughly controlled that game and they didn't get rewarded for it. But they got a loser point at least. So that's something. It's early. Deep breaths. Deep breath.
We're going to talk more about the events that will eventually unfold and the really early takes of Jacob Markstrom and everything else surrounding the Flames. But first, we are going to take a quick break here, and I'm going to talk to you about Game Time. Game Time, I kid you not, I probably checked the app 3 times today at work because I'm trying to get tickets to the Flames when they're in Montreal. So, I stand by this app, and you shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets to your next big event. And if you are interested in going to theater, concerts, games, whatever it may be, Game Time has your last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, and they're super easy to find on the website, or the app rather, and you get a view from all seats in the venue, and that's super helpful if you've never been to an event or this venue. And I think it's great because for concert views, it's a little bit different than a hockey game. So it's good to see different perspectives there. And you can earn $20 off your first purchase today with Game Time when you download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And then, of course, gotta take a quick second here to talk to you about AG1. AG1 is a delicious way to start your day. All you have to do is put 1 scoop. AG1 replaces your multivitamin, probiotic, and more in 1 sippable, drinkable habit. All you have to do is put the science-driven formula in a cup of water. Just 1 scoop to start your day. All great athletes have one thing in common, and they take care of their bodies. Why not do that with AG1? If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go drinkag1.com/NHL Network. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us today on Locked On Flames as we power through a few off days that I think everyone could kind of use after 1-1-1 start.
I wish the NHL did a better job of ramping up the season.
Yes.
There was a lot of games on Thursday. There were 3 games on Friday. There were a lot of games on Saturday. There were like 4 games on Sunday. There were 6 games yesterday, and I think there's like 5 or 6 games today. Like, if you're going to launch your season, be aware of what's around you. I understand you don't want to go head to head with the baseball playoffs or the NFL or college football, but then plan your season to start on a Tuesday or a Wednesday so that way you can ramp up into that, and then you have the lighter schedule on the weekend. It's been frustrating. Like, I would like to watch some hockey. Like, I tried to do my power rankings today, and I was like, that's right, I've only seen like 11 teams because everybody's playing at the same time. It's hard to gauge where everybody's at when you can't watch the games, and you can't do that if there's 8 on at once. I try to watch 3 games at once, but you can glance over when, you know, the commentator's voice inflection changes and, you know, there's a scoring opportunity. But hockey is not like baseball where you can kind of whip your head around and keep an eye on multiple things. Hockey's hard to do multiple games at once.
I really wish that they would embrace the staggered start times, because why on earth were there 4 games on Saturday, 4 or 5 games on Saturday that started at 7:00?
It's infuriating, man. I just want to watch games. I just want to watch games and feel it out.
Right. And it's wonderful when there are those staggered start times occasionally. When one game goes to an intermission, you can just pop over to another one, and that carries you over. It's simple. Figure it out.
Like 10, 15 minutes. I'm not saying you got to do 7, 7:30, 7:45, 8. I'm saying if you want to do Eastern time zone, you do 7, you do 7:30, and then you start your centrals at 8:00. That way, during intermissions, people can go watch the other games. It's just, it's simple. It really shouldn't be this hard. It really shouldn't. There's probably logistical reasons for it, but as a consumer, why are you telling me I can't watch more hockey?
Right. And the fact that we want more hockey should drive them to, and it's not just like it's the 2 of us saying this, it's a lot of people, and they just do anything right.
Because people don't want to, because it's been the same people in charge forever, and those people aren't inclined to change. But I digress. Back to the Flames.
Yes. So they're in Buffalo on Thursday.
It looked very bad, Buffalo, by the way. They have yet to win a game. They have 3 goals in, I want to say, 2 games. They looked atrocious against the Rangers. They made the Rangers look amazing last Thursday.
They did.
And then they lost over the weekend to the Islanders at the Islanders in their home opener. So it's an opportunity. Buffalo is a very up and down tempo team. The Flames, if they are able to stick to their structure and kind of maintain a rigidness to how they play, especially through the neutral zone, they'll be able to force Buffalo into mistakes, which is what the Rangers and Islanders both did over the weekend and last Thursday, where whichever team was in the neutral zone defending, Buffalo would just kind of skate into them and then either pass the puck to the right and turn it over, or just turn the puck over skating forward, and really didn't get anything going. And the Flames are pretty decent at that, at standing guys up in the neutral zone and keeping things in front of them.
Yeah. And, you know, I feel like Buffalo is actually the first game of back-to-back for the Flames. And then they go to Columbus, but who's in Columbus? Never heard of the Blue Jackets in my life.
Columbus scores goals. I'll give them that. Their defense, their goaltending, it's not great, but they score goals. I'll give them credit where it's due. They've got some forward talent.
How many times do you want to hear that cannon?
I hate that cannon so much, man. It's so disorienting. Like, I'm just trying to watch a hockey game here.
I feel like between that and the Tampa Bay Lightning goal horn, like those 2 could really just create problems by themselves.
Some of the goal horns are very triggering for certain fan bases in certain situations. Like I know there are Detroit Red Wing fans who still hear Chelsea dagger go off and they think about that goal getting disallowed in the conference finals in 2013, or Ranger fans who think about the Lightning goal horn going off on game, I want to say 4 against the Lightning in 2015. That's the thing about auditory triggers, where it's like you can hear something and then instantly get taken back to where you were when it happened,
Yeah.
when you heard it in the traumatic event. There's not like,
Not have this effect on us.
oh
Here we
man,
are.
it's hockey's just hockey's the Capitals, the police siren goal horn.
Yeah.
The amount of playoff games I've sat through, whether it be watching the Rangers or the Penguins or whoever against the Capitals, and the police siren goal horn. Like, what? Oh God, why does it have this reaction?
Well, hopefully the Flames can just not allow any of these goal horns, or keep it to a minimum as they continue their road trip. What do you have to say for the people who think, this 5-game road trip to start the season, like, it sets the tone? It really, you get your feet underneath you a little bit here. Is this as bad as people are making it out to be?
It's definitely inconvenient. I think it's 13 out of the first 19 are on the road. Something really egregiously, like a stark contrast like that, which you don't typically see. You really only see that if you're having like renovations or something to that effect, or your arena's booked for something else. But it's taxing. You don't rest as well as you would at a hotel room. You don't have as much access to the same amenities you do at your facility, even though the road team gets stuff when they visit an arena, but it's not to what your degree of what you have at your facility, what you're comfortable with, whatever. And like this is on the margins. These are little things. Those are things that good teams, they don't really get affected by, that they're ready to play in any situation, whatever. But yeah, it's inconvenient. I don't think it's a big deal. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. If we're looking at them a month from now and they've, they're a couple games under 500, then okay, maybe we could talk about that being a factor. But especially because a lot of them aren't playoff teams. Like, if you're playing good teams, okay, but handle your business against the teams you're supposed to. Come to the rink ready to go. It's early, guys. In theory, and if you're not watching on YouTube, I threw a crossed up fingers up there. Guys aren't dinged up yet. They're not managing nagging injuries the same way they would be in January or February. So in all honesty, this is when you want to get your road games out of the way, is early in the season when everybody's as healthy as they can be.
At least for the Flames. I mean, actually, that's a lie. The Washington Capitals and Pittsburgh Penguins are older teams. But number one, Pittsburgh was on the second half of a back-to-back. Not great.
No.
Losing to the nursing home Capitals, come on. After controlling the game the way that they did. I mean, I wasn't able to watch the entire thing because I was traveling back, but like, where did it go wrong?
Against the Capitals, it was just kind of sloppy. It was just a little bit sloppy. I mean, the second Washington goal, Markstrom just flopped. He'll tell you himself he has to have that. He looked behind him. He had an opportunity. He just didn't react fast enough to get it as it was squeaking across the goal line. The Matthew Phillips goal, that's a transition goal. It was a 2-on-1. It's a pet peeve of mine when defensemen snow angel instead of going to a knee to try and break up the 2-on-1, because once you snow angel, you're out of the play. You can't react. You can't reach or anything. Once you go down to your belly or your back to make that play, there's nothing else for you to do unless the puck hits. If you stay on a knee, you can get your stick out into the shooting lane, or in theory, you can stretch one of your legs in a direction to get to the puck. So that's something I've noticed. Zadorov did that a couple times against Pittsburgh as well on Saturday. But when you're back defending a 2-on-1, you're a little desperate. You're just trying to get your body in the way any way you can. So, you give a little bit benefit of the doubt. The Pittsburgh players are really good. The Washington goal, it was a 2-on-1. Markstrom didn't really have a great chance to make a save because the defender, I think it was Tanev on the Phillips goal, he overcommitted trying to make the save, and then it was trying to break up the pass, and then it was pretty easy shot. They had Markstrom moving left to right. When you get the goalie moving and it's a 2-on-1, that's where you want to be in the NHL when you're making rush opportunities.
Oh, it's still early, people. We have plenty of time ahead of us. But we are going to wrap up the show with a little bit, we're taking the temperature of this team today. And we are going to take a quick break here. And I'm going to tell you about one of our favorite apps, FanDuel Sportsbook. A snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Nick, how did your betting over the weekend go?
Oh, I took a bath on football this weekend. It was almost a toaster bath, but thankfully.
So, yeah, don't listen to us when it comes to betting advice for football, but the app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Thanks, everyone, for sticking around with us. So thank you for being here with us. Truthfully, the schedule did not line up with my schedule very well. So you've probably watched more Flame hockey than I have this week.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been able to watch most of all 3 games. Some of the game on Saturday night I missed. I want some of the first period because I was out, but by the time I got home, I was able to watch the end of it. So I've got a decent grasp on what I've seen. They've played pretty well. They've done a good job of controlling play. The Winnipeg game, the one game they won, ironically, was probably their worst performance of the 3, but they were able that they got dramatically outchanced, but Markstrom played great, kept him in it till the end, and they found a way to win at the end. It's when I talked about on yesterday of what the episode I did by myself. That's the difference between good teams and bad teams, and this is going to sound very cliche. Good teams find ways to win. Bad teams find ways to lose. The Flames found a way to win on last week against the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, the Pittsburgh game, you're at 2-2 in the third on the road after having a 2-goal lead early. You felt pretty good about it. Same thing happened to you last night against Washington. You got a 2-goal lead early, and you couldn't find offense after that. We're still in the early stages here. We're feeling things out, and it's very, very early.
How has Huberdeau looked? Because I have seen some people saying that he looks like he's lost out there. Like he has no idea what's going on.
It's hard to gauge because I can only go off of what I understand, what their responsibilities are supposed to be based on the situation they're in. Like I can go pull up a book of every single team's X's and O's and tell you what it's supposed to look like.
Right.
But that's what kind of separates hockey from the other sports is there's so much interpretation and freedom to the guys out on the ice to make a play within those defined parameters of, well, if you're F1, you're supposed to do this. If you're F2, you're supposed to do this. But it doesn't always work like that. And that's why hockey has so much why coaching in hockey kind of matters the least in the actual game, because they're not calling plays. It's not like football. No. It's not like baseball. It's not like basketball. Baseball, they're not calling pitches from the dugout. In football, they're not calling plays from the box. In basketball, from the sideline, they're not calling plays. So a lot of it is up to their determination. I will say he's been forcing it a little bit, maybe a little bit too much passing. But other than that, I mean, it's very early to tell. We're still kind of ironing out line mates and who's going to play with who. That's the other component, I would say. Once we got a better idea of what the lines are going to look like, then we can start critiquing, well, I would like to see this person doing this more, a little bit more of that, so forth.
I think that it's pretty interesting and probably for the better that Ryan Huska has kind of shuffled the lines, especially during the preseason and practice, because it's less of like adjustment. It lessens the adjustment maybe for some of these players moving around a lot more than others.
There are 2 schools of thought with this, and I understand a lot of coaches, because the tactics, the strategy, the X's and O's, whatever, they're pretty malleable. Like when a team isn't playing well, the coach isn't going to change their responsibilities or the structure. They're going to re-emphasize the structure and say, we need to play harder. We need to stick to our system more deliberately, as opposed to like in football, if they're sitting in a cover 2, you're going to run the ball to try and get them to bring that safety down to the line to be able to throw the ball more. There's not like a rock beats paper, a paper beats rock kind of situation in hockey. That's where the line juggling comes in, because that's one of the direct ways a coach can change how guys are playing, by changing who they play with. So I think based on 3 games, there hasn't been a ton of juggling. There hasn't been a ton of guys shifting in and out. We'll see. We'll see what Huska's default is when things aren't going well. If it'll be to allow guys time to figure it out, or if it'll be to juggle to kind of try and get a spark.
I'm so glad that you can break things down like that for all of us to understand, because it's a different perspective and a good way to look at things. How is the power play really? Like, I don't think that I saw people saying that this was, it's a failure. It's, this is Kirk Mueller's power play all over again. We are 3 games into this, and I believe that they have scored like 3 or 4 power play goals.
the big thing, and I talked about this a lot in the offseason, was they don't have a conventional trigger man for their power play. They
Right.
don't have somebody with the big one-timer. So that changes what you have to do on your power play to generate offense. Typically speaking, if you don't have the big one-timer where you're looking for the cross-seam pass or the defenseman from the point, what you're going to do is look for the deflections, the rebounds, the stuff around the net mouth, or you're going to look for the tic-tac-toe kind of pass to a guy who can get it close to the net mouth. You want where the puck will be at one of the circles or below the goal line, and then get it out to the middle in that slot area in between the circles. That's generally where you're looking for if you don't have somebody with a big one-timer. In an ideal world, they trust Coronato enough to be that guy eventually, because the release is there. The release, he's arguably got the best release on the team 3 games into his NHL career. He's got a great shot. He really, the goal against Pittsburgh, that was a professional goal scorer's goal there. He beat the goalie near post on a 1-T. Great look. That, if they get him comfortable enough to do that, then that opens up more stuff. That's once you get to, like I was talking about at the beginning of the show, the riding the bike metaphor.
Yeah.
Right now, the Flames got to get to where they're pedaling and they're keeping the bike level in the middle. Once they do that, then they can start pedaling faster and trying to pop wheelies and stuff like that. Once we get the pedaling going, because remember, they were 19th in the league in power play last year. They don't need to be top 10, but they need to bump that up to 14, 15, and that's your difference in your 28, 29 1-goal games, 4 or 5 more power play goals.
It's doable because you know what? We have 79 more.
Yes.
Yeah, 79 more games. So like this promise, it's not, doomsday in Calgary. Hopefully we won't be seeing that again this season. But that does it for today's
Belvedere. Oh, that was a total nothing burger. Forget it. I'm not even going to dignify reading that. I honestly should have been skeptical just clicking on the link based on who tweeted it, but
well, that does it for today's show. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us today. You're up for some more East Coast friendly times. It's delightful. And don't get me wrong, I love staying up late, but there's something nice about being done at like 11 o'clock instead of 12:31. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you're getting your podcast, and of course on YouTube as well. You can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Leave a nice little review and a little rating. And Nick, do you have any parting words?
it's cold.
Bundle up.